today's webinar is focused on the effective and efficient ways that corporations can help staff their legal departments. Got a great group today to talk about different ways and processes. Laura's going to spend a few minutes talking through some of the Leopard data that we've compiled from a few surveys and from our database on hiring trends in corporate world. James from Cluen is going to spend a few minutes talking through how his product has helped with the efficiency in the process for corporate recruiters. And we have Claudia here to talk through her process from Meta. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we'll jump in. Claudia, you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Phil. Happy to be here to speak with everyone. I am an executive recruiter at Meta. I'm a recovering attorney, so space is near and dear to my heart, and transitioned from my law practice to recruiting, and then eventually as executive search at various search firms before landing at Meta about 4 years ago, where I primarily focus on legal recruiting for our executive level members, as well as in policy, comms, finance, and various sort of core business aspects of the company.
Awesome.
So great to talk to you.
Thank you. James?
Hi, everyone. My name is James Gross. I am a solutions consultant here at Cluen. Our company makes a CRM really for strategic recruitment. We have a lot of experience with legal search as well as in-house executive search teams. And we just wanted to go over some kind of best practices and different things we've seen for all the different kind of clients we work with. And yeah, thanks guys for having us on. Really excited to participate and to talk a little bit more about some of the trends and different things we've been seeing and working on here. So
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks, James. And Laura?
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Leopard. I'm the CEO and a founder of Leopard Solutions. We are here to showcase some data we don't typically show around here, which is data from our in-house database and the migration from our attorney database into our in-house database. So we have some new things to look at today. We've been working on this database for about 6-7 years. And it really has grown in scope and depth. And today we're going to show you some of the insights that we can glean from it. And last year we did a survey of in-house counsel, and the full survey is the white paper on it is free to you. If you just want to go to our thought leadership page, which is on the public pages of our website, you can download the entire white paper and see all the information there. We surveyed 473 in-house counsels to learn about their job satisfaction and much more. And that full report is available to you right now. So we were really wondering about work-life balance because, it's such an important big issue for attorneys at law firms. So we wanted to ask in-house attorneys about their work-life balance. And our survey showed that 76% of the attorneys in our survey ranked work-life balance as either satisfactory or very satisfactory. Now, we compared that to an Axiom survey that was taken a little bit earlier. And their survey, 58% of attorneys felt very satisfied or completely satisfied in their current position. And the categories, of course, between the two are not exactly the same, but both show that a majority seem to be quite satisfied in their work-life balance working at an in-house company. This was a question, would you return to a law firm? Dreaded, work-life balance, that dreaded billable hour, keeping time in 6-minute increments, and the need to build a book of business really felt overwhelming and unsustainable for many attorneys at top law firms. And these comments came directly from that survey where 309 people left sort of a write-in comment about what it would take to get them to return to a law firm. And you'll see a consistent thread that dread of the billable hour, better work-life balance, and more. And some really had some terrible experiences in law firms and just responded with a resounding no, we would not return. We also know that younger generations really care less about making partner at these big law firms because they care a whole lot more about their work-life balance, right? That is something that they put at the top of their list. And we asked them how they, rate their work-life balance in their current position with their in-house company, and by and large, right, they just said they were satisfied. So looking at factors for job satisfaction, only about half the respondents were satisfied with the opportunity for advancement with their current position. An Axiom study also showed concern for career advancement. 78% of their respondents felt they would need to change employers to advance their careers. The Axiom study also noted that 28% of those respondents felt their position didn't offer a clear career path. So how important is the opportunity for advancement? When looking at those who cited dissatisfaction with advancement opportunities, only 43%, that's a full 9% less than the general sample, stated firmly that they would not return to a law firm. 17%, 6% more, said they would return to a law firm. 39% would consider it. So a lack of upward mobility, better money, if firms are more fair about attribution, origination credit, some would consider going back. The comments are from our Leopard survey, and they're pretty frank about what it would take to return. The Axiom study shows that all in-house opportunities are not the same, right? With many attorneys feeling extremely stressed and experiencing increased workloads. Almost all of their respondents say their workloads have increased over the last few years. So all is not equal on the work-life balance front in the in-house world. Only 12% of the attorneys in our survey were making over $500,000 for their all-in compensation. It does look like there is some pay disparity that could be in play here. The largest share of respondents worked at companies with revenue over $1 billion. 34% were GCs or CLOs, yet their pay seems less than what it should be. The Axiom question about how committed companies are to DE&I initiatives, 49% of the Axiom respondents felt their company was very aligned with their DE&I initiatives, while 46% of ours felt strongly that their company was committed to diversity. 34% of our respondents somewhat agreed. 34% of Axioms felt their company was somewhat aligned. If we take the senior general counsel and the general counsel together, they represent about 34% of respondents. They either go into the $300,000 or $500,000 bucket, or the $500,000 and beyond. According to the NLA in-house compensation survey, companies over $1 billion should be compensating at a higher rate than what was seen in our survey. So we also wanted to know how general counsels evaluated outside counsel. And of course, we see that responsiveness and legal expertise are top priorities. But in comments, respondents also shared that commitment to diversity is important, as is receiving practical business advice and seeing their counsel as a partner in what they do. As that business partner, firms can leverage, their attorney and firm connections and provide introductions to your key clients, making you a very valuable resource just beyond your legal expertise, making you more of a legal partner. Law firms are using our connection report for business development opportunities, but for client relationship building, that's really another use case that can help firms stand out in the crowd when they see that companies are shopping for counsel. We also asked, what is the primary need for outside counsel? And of course, number one was litigation. And number two, corporate general business law. So now we're going to put the survey away and we're going to go into our in-house database and mine some history and see what it can tell us. There's over 84,000 attorneys in that database. It's over 6,800 companies, all kinds of titles and companies in a range of industries. So we're always looking for exit data, right? When somebody leaves a company or somebody leaves a law firm, where do they go? And when attorneys exit an in-house company, that we cover, and we're looking at sort of our universe of companies. And for this report, we're looking at companies that have 25 or more attorneys. And the overwhelming move when they left an in-house company was back to another in-house company. And the percentages have adjusted, a bit, and the return to a law firm has risen 3% over last year, which I found really interesting. Moving into a top 200 firm, however, has decreased by 1% each year. So this chart shows much more movement in 2022 than in the years around it. 2023 is still ongoing, however, and should finish with a higher number. We do have to add the caveat that we added more companies to the in-house database in 2022. However, that does not explain this rise. It may have something to do with it, but not everything to do with it. And what we're seeing here is really at odds with what we saw happening in law firms in 2022. Law firms saw lateral hiring spike in 2021, and then it came down in 2022. Here we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing lateral hiring spike in 2022. So we thought we would take a look at the exits in 2022 by JD year and just see if age makes a difference. And of course, the highest lateral moves that we see here were in the mid-career folks between 36 and 45. The younger set moved back to a law firm at a much higher percentage than their older colleagues at 29%. And the next group went back to a law firm at 16%. So we found that to be pretty interesting. Now, this is the same chart, but we're looking at the numbers, right? Not the percentage of each group, but the actual numbers. And you can see the youngest group barely moved at all. So the youngest group really was sort of staying pat in their in-house company. The oldest group in this moves by far the most, and that younger set barely moving. So here, we're looking at the practice area that was held by the attorney when they left their top 200 firm. So what practice area they had when they exited a top 200 firm. And that will give us some insight about, the talents that these in-house companies are seeking, right? Well, we just saw that the thing that they hire the most for outside counsel is litigation. But you can see here, those with a litigation practice, they have been increasingly moving to in-house over the year. That percentage has been creeping up. Those with a corporate practice area have actually gone down. The percentages with a banking, bankruptcy, and real estate background, that's remained rock steady all 3 years. So that really makes me question that rise in litigators that they're hiring to go in-house. Either they're looking to do more litigation in-house, or they're hiring them to come in and better manage, the outside counsel that they're hiring to do that work for them. Either way, it's a really fascinating statistic. Now, this chart looks very different for firms outside of the top 200, but litigation still wins the day, and it has grown year over year. But all the other practices are really in the single digits, right? There's that 10% in corporate in 2021, but far fewer people with a corporate practice area in this group of firms are going in-house, and far fewer in all the other practice areas as well. And I threw this in just because we do a lot of work on data about women, right? And this I just found very, very interesting. So if you look at that top chart, these is attorneys who exit in-house and then return in the top chart to a top 200 firm, and what title they are given when they move into that category. And the women by far are given the title of counsel, a little more evenly distributed for the men. They have a much higher percentage of going back as a partner. At firms under the top 200, it is a little more evenly distributed. There is a higher percentage of partner for women, but a much higher percentage of partner for men getting those titles. And you'll notice for women, 38% of those titles were associate. You really don't see that looking on the male side of things. So it was really, really interesting to delve into our in-house database and see what it can tell us. And as usual, data answers questions, and it also makes you ask more questions. So I look forward to seeing what thoughts others might have on the data today.
Awesome. Thanks, Laura. Good stuff. James, you want to take us a tour through your world?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, Phil. Yeah, really, really insightful stuff, Laura. And yeah, kind of today, what we really wanted to talk about was, a lot of, trends around, legal recruitment and in-house placements, and, kind of how you can use technology to really support a lot of those trends and those, a lot of the data Laura was just talking about. So hopefully we can add some interesting insights into the session today. So yeah, we've been building and refining recruitment software for both in-house executive search as well as legal search teams, really for decades. And we think we can kind of add some value here. So for those of you who don't know us, Cluen makes a CRM called Encore Max to support strategic recruitment teams. As I mentioned, we've been around since 1990, and over those years, we've continued to evolve the product with tons of research and development and customer feedback. And using a proven implementation process, we take our product's foundational points and configure it into a unique system for you to support your team's initiatives, and ultimately, it results getting the business results that you want out of a system like this. So I personally have been at Cluen for 8 years now and have been working in recruitment technology solutions for basically my whole career. So I'm excited to talk to you today about some of those insights and best practices we see across attorney recruitment. I work with both existing and potential clients to help, formulate a unique database build to meet the specific needs of each individual client and help them achieve the desired results to get back out of the system. So on the legal search side, as many of you may know, we do have a partnership with Leopard and a direct integration with the Leopard list data. So it really gives legal recruitment folks a nice and powerful offering to have all of their primary targets in the recruitment CRM with refreshed weekly updates. So this gives our clients the ability to get law firm data directly in the database. And if a lawyer makes a lateral move, it will update your CRM automatically. So once the data is in Encore, you can utilize our CRM to quickly pull candidate lists, track candidates against a job, even email blast a group of potential candidates, or set up call campaigns and manage relationships, among other features there. So our tool is used by teams who are working with more passive candidates who may or may not be actively looking, but happen to be a great fit for a role you're working on. That's why on the in-house side, we see people using this more along the lines of relationship management, building deeper profiles on candidates, which includes attributes and other key differentiation data. Also org mapping and in-depth talent pipelining to create kind of a central hub of high-value data that is, truly special to your team that can't be found, on the internet or on LinkedIn. As you know, LinkedIn has all the names, but for us, it's more about tracking action with those candidates, who they know, what your history is with them, so you can build the best rapport possible with those superstar candidates that you're working with. So the data in Encore is very relational and really much more valuable than collecting similar data in like a spreadsheet, which can't really be leveraged easily by other members of your team and really returns little payback overall. So with our experience formulating unique CRM instances for hundreds of different types of recruitment teams, we put some info together on some best practices for in-house legal. on using a CRM. So some of these things include creating talent pipelines for expected future needs. So with all the target data already included, the pipeline process becomes much more about fine-tuning the fit and nurturing relationships. By using fine-grained searching tools to select targets, top teams are refining their lists in minutes. Then with leveraging template-based email automations, the cycle of relationship nurturing is completed in record time, through some manual oversight to avoid risky mistakes. So also another part, running a true executive search. So from strategic targeting through candidate development and assessment, with engagement of your stakeholders along the whole way, this extra visibility to the process results in stronger slates of candidates and better decision-making abilities in the final stages. So Cluen's tools were designed to support these workflows while automating as much of the busy work as possible, which no one's a big fan of doing, right? So tracking inbound submissions from legal recruiters is another really way we see, in-house legal teams using something like this. So some best practices around that include systemic tracking of new candidates provided by legal recruiters. So marking which recruiter submitted them and slotting in the appropriate status on the project. Knowing exactly when you've received certain information can be very helpful in the future. This is also critical in centralizing your internal knowledge, but also for compliance with various regulations that could apply, like the GDPR in Europe, CCPA in California, OFCCP, and others. Diversity and self-identification surveys. So in addition to tracking and reporting diversity to match organizational goals, we have seen a rise in CRM integrated candidate-facing surveys. So these can include diversity, self-identification, and other qualifiers for assessment, as well as over-satisfaction in the process. Another one is measuring performance of outside recruiters. So some in-house teams do almost all the work themselves, and some do farm out some of the placements to legal recruiters. So if your team does send jobs out, stats like ratio of submission to hire we see as valuable for tracking, which firms are providing the highest quality or most successful candidates. By looking at these key metrics, as well as overall satisfaction from your team, your stakeholders, and the candidates themselves, really a much clearer picture can emerge. So in considering the types of satisfaction surveys you would send to hiring managers, interviewers, and candidates themselves, start by envisioning your perfect recruitment process and then kind of work backwards to see what the smaller milestones will get you that specific result. So Cluen's team has plenty of insight on the specifics here, and you're welcome to really brainstorm one of our project leads if ever interested. But yeah, in addition to the specific best practices I just mentioned, the whole relationship tracking element is really big. It doesn't necessarily have to be dependent on a placement you're currently working on. Things like tracking the life cycle of referrals from high-value contacts, keeping in touch with alumni, and being able to see who may have worked on certain accounts in the past are just a few of the benefits of keeping this knowledge centralized in a tool designed to kind of connect all the dots. This is critical for building a pool of contacts and webs of relationships within your system that connect, that kind of connect and grow as you keep making new connections. So having a feature that can show relationship associations to other people in a system really bears a lot of fruit in the future, we've seen, when you're trying to connect the dots on some other candidate or contacts you're building rapport with. And just really having a unique and confidential silo of top-tier talent only accessible to you and your team is something that we hear from everybody is what's kind of super valuable. So overall, after decades working with different in-house teams, the biggest takeaway we've seen is these in-house teams are far more successful when using a tool really set up for your specific initiatives and kept confidentially separated from the other recruitment teams internally. We've worked with many Fortune 1000 companies, and even these huge organizations often only have a few or a handful of people on their team who have access to this specialty database. Having a separate and confidential data silo for your top tier legal talents and targets really helps provide measurable results and speed, to actual placements. So yeah, that's just some of the high level highlights we've seen as we kind of put our heads together here at Cluen as a team on what could be the most valuable stuff to bring up in the webinar today. So yeah, so hopefully that could trigger a nice basis of discussion for today's webinar and help open things up. So
awesome. All right, good stuff, James. Appreciate it. All right, Claudia. We just heard from how Cluen helps their clients and some good research from Laura. just on the industry. You mind talking through some of your process at Meta and hiring and your focus within how you support the legal department?
Sure. Sorry, I'm just like avoiding this beam of light.
It's perfect timing.
Yeah, so we are, as you could probably imagine, a pretty large legal team at Meta, having grown substantially over the 4 years I've been there. I think that a lot of the data I saw from Laura was really connected to what I see in terms of where we're hiring, where we're really not hiring. And I think the observation on especially the trends around litigation were really accurate and astute based on sort of knowing that clearly it's not a huge amount of, you're not going to have a huge litigation department per se, but you do need people who can talk and manage and handle the outside counsel budgets, which in some instances are astronomical. So, you know, and I think that that makes a lot of sense. And then the other thing I'll make an observation about just from personal experience was the corporate roles. You know, those are the type of roles where they're few and far between. And you don't need a million people to do that job. And it's a great job. So I tend to find that those are people who would be somewhere for a very long time. And it would have to be a very appealing company or a very appealing situation to get them to move. So I thought that was really interesting just from my experience. But in terms of our process, I would say the thing that most people don't realize is that we are primarily searching for passive candidates. So that's why these tools are so important to us. You can, you know, probably imagine you see advertisements all the time for jobs at Meta or various other companies, and people, you know, are applying often, and sometimes once in a while someone will apply and actually be qualified, but majority of the time they're not. So especially at the level we're looking at, I would say most of the time we're searching and hunting for passive candidates, which is why, you know, we spend so much of our time and efforts on the research process and being able to speak to the market, knowing where to look. And especially if we're looking at legal roles in the world of litigation, let's say, they're going to be at law firms most of the time. And I don't know about you, but I don't know many litigators who keep their LinkedIn's up to date. So scouring the thousands of law firms, you know, website by website is nearly impossible. So having these tools is really important for us. But we always start our process by sort of going into the market and evaluating and looking at people's skill sets and backgrounds and varieties. I would say a challenge with the law firms is coming in-house. A lot of the time, there's some expectation of having managed or being a manager, and that's not really experience you typically get at a law firm. Even if you're a partner, even if you're the managing partner, you're usually really not managing people. So that's usually a challenge. But we go out there, we do our due diligence, we find people, we reach out to them in various methods, phone, email, LinkedIn, and have conversations and review the information with them. Obviously, we are kind of doing both sides of the coin, so sort of selling the roles as well as having them sell themselves to us. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we bring our, you know, the person who's hiring for the role. We will then sort of, they trust us to be the experts of what's out there and what looks good. And we bring them, you know, the group that we've evaluated. They'll review them, have their first conversations with them. And then at Meta in particular, we do have what we call structured interviews. So once a manager has decided they like, let's say 4 candidates out of the 10 they've talked to, we have a panel of leaders at the company from various parts, you know, cross-functional partners, peers, managers who each have specific sort of behavioral topics that they discuss with them. We assume that by the time they've gotten to that point, they're qualified in their job. Now it's about understanding how they think, how they lead, how they are strategic in their actions. And we also find that helps eliminate a lot of bias, so that each person has a specific topic that they're talking to them about, whether it's, you know, their analytical skills or their ability to work as a cross-functional partner. And then that group gathers together to discuss as a panel their experiences. Also tends to be a better experience for the candidates, since they aren't having the same conversation over and over again and telling their life story over and over again. And then the panel makes a decision as a group. Everybody it's kind of like a jury. They have to decide together. And then we sort of negotiate and work on offers and things like that. That's
Awesome.
that's
Cool. And roughly speaking, I mean, you talked about the research that you guys do to find the sort of passive candidates. Is there a proportion or a percentage of candidates that you guys are getting, kind of self-finding, or versus recruiters bringing to you, external recruiters? Do you sort of have a gauge of that?
I would say we have limited to zero external recruiters bringing us candidates.
Okay.
A few years ago, before I joined, we didn't have much of an executive search function at Meta, so there was a lot of utilization of the larger executive search firms. That's not something so much we have anymore, since we have sort of built that out over the past few years, sort of bringing it in-house. But I would say the majority of it would be sort of candidate or recruiter sourced candidates. We also have a really strong referrals program within Meta, where everything is posted. It's a community of saying, we want great people, feel free to pass them along. And I will say that if you are referred in through somebody at Meta, you automatically kind of get a look, and at least get you to the top of the pile to say, here is somebody who works at a MetaMate has referred this person, and we should really take it seriously. That doesn't mean they're going to get the job. That doesn't mean that there's a bias, but it does help. And, we hire good people, so we expect them to have good people that they know too. But yeah, I would say the majority, pretty significant, is sourced by our recruiters.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, I mean, we talked about some of the research talked about the reasons why some folks want to move in-house. Does that parallel some of the feedback that you get from some of these candidates that decide to make the move, or what do you hear as some of the major reasons?
I think absolutely broken record work-life balance is a big one. I'm also, I think that it gets to a point in someone's career where they are in a little bit of a golden handcuffs, potentially at a law firm. So I'm not so surprised to see that the movements are really significant kind of in that mid-career, because I think that that's a good point. Again, I think it's kind of like when you're on the more junior side of your career, you're not as desirable to the companies. And then when you're in the mid part, you're kind of in that between, where if you stay on this partner track or whatnot, it's going to be a situation where you might not be making as much money right away, and that can be scary for people, or they don't want to take a step backward. So I think that piece really makes a lot of sense. I also think that absolutely career growth is something that it doesn't really exist at a firm. There's two paths, and that's something also that I experienced at a search firm. There's two paths, and not a lot of other options for you to grow and develop. So I think that having that opportunity at companies in general, you just have a lot more options. And then the last thing I would say is, I know that it helped, like, sort of once you're in-house and you're working for your client, and your client is a part of you get to see the sort of the fruits of your labor. You get to see it at the end of the day. I know my husband is a litigator, and people only call him when there's a problem. So you never get to see the good stuff at the end. So I think having one client who you're emotionally and physically invested in helps just sort of have, I think, some more career satisfaction.
Nice, very cool. And you talked about it a little bit. It sounds like, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but just out of curiosity, are you primarily searching for folks that are directly coming from a law firm, or do you guys ever really go look at other companies or like where?
Yeah, good question. Honestly, unless it's a litigator, we're really not looking in firms. So it's I would say typically we are looking at a lot of people at other companies.
Interesting.
And I think that we typically see a well-rounded candidate as someone who has either started or grown, again, it depends on the role, but started or grown up at a law firm to some extent, sort of cut their teeth there, moved in-house, maybe to a smaller or adjacent type of company, and then is looking for, again, that next step. But it just depends on the role. But I would say the litigators are the main ones that we would be really looking for from law firms.
Cool. And I guess just challenges that you uncover, throughout the process, where areas that you feel like, boy, I wish we could do this part a little bit better. Any wish list items around the whole process? Or I know you talked about a little bit. You've kind of created this process internally and so on and so forth. But any challenges that you mind sharing?
No, I think that from what I can share, I think that, and James and I kind of commiserated on this a little bit. We are obviously a very forward-facing compliant company. Everything we do is highly scrutinized. So every aspect of reaching out to a candidate, having their information, having their data is really, really important. So everything is as secure as it can be, but we are essentially, to some extent, using the same type of tools that my engineering recruiting peers use. So it is different. It is a different type of specialization, and having something that is more fine-tuned specifically for legal, especially because, being a legal recruiter is different. You have to speak the language. You have to speak several languages. And so that's something that's a little, it's always a pain point. And that's also something James and I joked about. Every time I've been at a firm, there's always been something to complain about with the CRM, but I think that we're in a great situation for what we've got, but it can always be a little bit better.
Nice. You also talked about, when we met earlier, about the size of the department. I know there's been some change. Do you mind speaking to sort of where you were, like when you first started, and sort of where you are now, and what you envision, if at all, if you can make that crystal ball projection, where you think it's going to go as you move forward?
I think that legal is, especially at a company like Meta, it's so tied to the company size. So every time you see Meta's numbers growing, their legal department is growing. Every time you see a new app, a new product, that's a new group of lawyers. It's a new set of problems. So it is, I would say in my time there, it has more than doubled probably the legal department. And again, as we grow, as our products grow, that is going to continue to grow.
I know, years ago, you rarely saw anybody moving from a law firm to in-house. Everyone said, oh no, that just doesn't happen because they really need a different type of focus and experience. When did that tide change? When did you start reaching out for those litigators?
I think that it's been a progression. I think that as just work has changed and evolved, problems have changed and evolved. I mean, again, I'm speaking specifically to Meta. We're a tech company. So many of our problems didn't exist and are unwritten. And so it's something where it's not grandfathered in issues we know we're going to be dealing with because we're in oil and gas or in manufacturing. This is all happening as it's going. And I would say the need for litigators, especially from a preemptive standpoint, is incredibly important because we are a company that focuses a lot on privacy by design and making sure we know to the best of our abilities while we're creating, we are looking forward to see what the problems will be. And you need people with a legal mind to be a partner in that process. I also think that just given, our amount of work in the government, our amount of work in policy, a lot of people we have are coming from that world, the DOJ, government, former government employees, and a lot of those, especially prosecutors, cybersecurity, things like that, they all fall into that world. And, if you think about what we encompass every single part of our platform, it's all new problems that are good, but at the same time, totally nuanced. And so having sort of as many people on top of it as possible, I think is really important. The other thing, I hate to be black and white about it, it's a lot cheaper, I think, to bring a great attorney in-house than billing them out for, $1,000 an hour every day. So again, I hate to say cheaper, but more cost efficient. So I think that to some extent it is something, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, well, that's great. Thank you.
Claudia, because you mentioned 4 years, right? You started prior to COVID, correct? Any change that occurred in your process, or any increase in people looking to maybe go in-house post-COVID? Has that changed even since COVID started? Anything around that?
It was a wild time. We were hiring a lot. We, I think that the biggest change obviously has been around like location strategies. We kind of went from, people were a little surprised to hear this, but prior to COVID, we were not a remote company. You were in the office 4 days a week. We had everybody worked from home 1 day a week. And then we went totally remote for 2 years. And then it was kind of a hybrid and now we're here again. I think something that's interesting that's happened with legal and litigators in general is they don't have to be in a courtroom anymore. So that's always been, I think, a huge reason. I think that a lot of people, that's kind of been like the desire to go in-house. I think that that's been something that has kept people sort of staying where they are or leaving. I just think that the location issue has been a driving factor for a lot of people. So I think now that we have lawyers who can work anywhere, that it makes it a lot more desirable. Because I think that a lot of law firms are kind of back in the old school, well, get back in the office. It's still kind of that sort of, older mentality of we need FaceTime, we need to be there every day. And having the ability to have the more flexible lifestyle is just so much more appealing. So I think we don't, I think that it's a very desirable place to work. It's a very, I don't think that, I think it's, you're right. You were right, Laura, in your analysis of it's very dependent on the company. I don't think anybody would have to go to any company. I do think it matters, but I think having a reputation as a company that takes care of its employees, has flexibility, has a better work-life balance. I also think that it's more of a team environment. So, when you're an attorney and you've got a caseload and you're sick or your kid's sick, there's not really anybody to catch you when you fall or you need it. And being at a company does sort of more provide that cushion and fallback. I think that, again, provides just a better quality of life.
Yeah.
I don't see any questions from the audience. Maybe last thoughts. James, you wanna jump in? Any last thoughts or comments?
No, yeah, I think a lot of things Claudia is mentioning is, hits home here with what we're doing. And, even like the transition of COVID, like, we've seen a lot of our clients, even within like the last 10 years, people had like their own in-house servers. Now, like, everyone's remote and like, we used to show up at the office and do trainings. Now it's just, it's just been kind of a whole different thing. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting. And yeah, we, continue to work with different legal teams. And, we even have like this new generative AI stuff that people love. So that's always been something that people are always asking us about, which has been kind of really cool. Just a lot of new stuff since COVID that we've been working on and that we've seen, just the whole environment change completely. So a lot of that stuff kind of, really hit home. So.
Technology is changing by the day, right? It's coming up on the 1-year anniversary of ChatGPT.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So
We didn't even touch on that. So
no, we didn't. No, we didn't.
Getting smarter and smarter every minute. So
that's right.
Yes. Yeah.
Laura, some last thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I think I'm struck by the whole litigation thing. And I think that would come as news to a lot of people. Litigators in-house not having to step in a courtroom to get their work done, and then, not having to be in an office every day. Boy, that it does sound appealing. And from all the work that we've done gathering, data about women, there's a lot of people dropping out mid-career from law firms, and a lot of them, and for women, a larger share of them are going into in-house. It just sounds like it's a more comfortable lifestyle fit. So it's fascinating stuff. And I thank you, Claudia, for sharing your experiences with us, because it's good to have somebody go, yes, you're right, or you're on track
Right.
there.
Yeah. No, it was like, I was watching, I was like, this is again, I'm not claiming this is my own opinions, obviously, but no, I think the women aspect is really interesting too. I think it's important not just to women, but to everybody, the DEI stuff and the, and that's something where I hate to say it, in a law firm, it's not necessarily top of mind, because it is more like 50 different business owners all share under one roof, as opposed to being one solid group, which is what really happens at a company. But whether it's a litigator or any other type of attorney, having that support, male or female, to say, hey, my kid's sick and they're screaming in the background, we're all in the same boat now. And just having that understanding. And I think it also breaks down a lot of barriers between hierarchies, and just makes you feel more comfortable and confident as a working mom, let's say, to be able to say and still have the career satisfaction. So, you don't have to sacrifice as much in terms of, having an ambitious career path, but also still holding it together at home, which we all are trying to do, because most of the people we're talking to and working with, I sit on Zooms all day with people all over the country and all over the world, and everyone's kind of in the same boat. So that's really where COVID was the great equalizer for everybody.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
True.
Good stuff. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys and the feedback and the thoughts and insights. Good, great insights. Thanks everyone for joining today. This has been recorded. We will share the recording with those that registered. Have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody.
Thank you.